Hello and welcome back to Dystopia Now. I am Kate Willett.
I'm Emil Torres.
And today we are going to talk about the four big AI companies and the race to build an AI god, even though that's kind of crazy. So, but just a couple updates. I'm seeing like this morning that Trump has threatens Europe over Greenland, but rules out sending troops there.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about putting like heavy tariffs on European countries. I mean, this is just it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's very hard
To start, I think, on February 1st. And then he's going to ratchet them up even more I can't remember if it's June or July, sometime in the summer, if the U.S. doesn't have possession of Greenland at that point. It's nuts.
That's crazy. I don't see him giving up on this stuff. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, he mentioned to a world leader, I'm forgetting the exact details, but he said, he was talking about Greenland, and he said, actually, maybe I was given some bad information, which I know some individuals in the media suggested might be his way of trying to like give himself a little bit of an out, because he's made such a big deal about this. Like, I mean, the thing about Trump is, I know I'm stating the obvious here, but all of the normal rules don't apply to him. Right. I mean, he just announced to NATO, to the audience at Davos in Switzerland, that, as you just mentioned, the U.S. really wants Greenland still, but we won't use military force. I read that and I'm like, that means we might use military force. Like it just means nothing. I mean, he is able to 180 flip on what he had previously said in just such an incredible way. And all of that is to say then, tying us back to the point we were talking about a moment ago, is that if he decides like in a week that he just doesn't care about Greenland anymore, that seems completely on point for him, right?
I completely agree. I mean, this is just a situation where it's like, it's obviously so horrible, but it's hard not to just find it funny as well because of the absurdity.
Yeah.
It's wild. But to get into our main topic for today, so you recently wrote an article like a very, very long article about how the four main AI companies who are now like such a large percentage of the U.S. economy, are actually kind of all coming out of this this movement or this like paradigm that you have termed task realism.
Yeah.
And like for people who may just be tuning into the show, like how I understand that as kind of like a lay person is there's like a kind of really culty set of ideas that much of Silicon Valley has gotten into, and in some ways like there are sort of like a literal cult around it where there's like actual people that are all hanging out together and being really mean to people who leave, and there's it's almost like a sci-fi religion. So we want to give people who may be new to the show just a little context for like what task realism is and why is that such a weird word.
Yes, yeah, it's a bit of an alphabet soup. I've never claimed it's a pretty or aesthetically pleasing acronym. It's not. It's really clunky, but it does a lot of useful work. I mean, part of my argument in the past, I could be completely wrong about this, but this is what I think is true, is that it's useful. It does what good scientific theories do, at least on one account, which is to combine and unify a bunch of disparate phenomena into a single set of concepts, under a single set of concepts. So good scientific theories.
I understand.
Yeah. Like Darwinian evolution. There are all of these things you observe out in the biological world, and Darwinian evolution gives an explanation that covers all of them. It ties them together in a really coherent and compelling way. So hopefully that's what the task rule framework does. And I've said before that the backbone of the bundle is transhumanism, right? So if you understand transhumanism, you've grasped a really key aspect of the whole task rule worldview. And so transhumanism is just this idea that we should develop advanced technologies to radically re-engineer the human organism. And the ultimate aim here would be to produce a new post-human species, right? So this isn't about enhancing humanity within a species-specific range of perfection or quote unquote excellence, right? But it's about going beyond transcending.
Right, like this
humanity.
isn't like how. Yeah, this isn't like how, scientists are now experimenting with how to maybe grow kidneys so people don't have to wait for a donor, right? Like it's not about just medical advances. And I think that that's an important distinction.
Yes, absolutely. So there may be the very same technologies that can be used for both purposes, right? But there is this kind of, it's a fuzzy but nonetheless useful distinction between enhansive uses and therapeutic uses, right? So what you were describing just now is a therapeutic use. Transhumanists say there is so much more to be gained by radically enhancing ourselves, right? By plugging our brains into computers through brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, by genetically modifying ourselves so that we have larger brains. Literally, there's some transhumanists who use the term "homo big-headus." That is it's so cringe to even say that, but this is in published papers.
If you're listening to the show in audio, I just made a face. That's what Emil was reacting to. It's homo big-headed. That's so stupid.
And I think they're okay, yeah, it's a silly term. I find it just really cringe that anybody wrote that. But they take the idea seriously. Maybe there are ways we can change our genome so that our brains are even bigger. There's also the possibility of injecting nanobots into your bloodstream so that they travel through your body, through the blood-brain barrier into your brain, and then transmit via Wi-Fi information about the microstructure of your central nervous system so that your mind can be uploaded to a computer. This is an idea that Ray Kurzweil talks about and has promoted. And then finally, related to that, there's this technology of AI, right? So, maybe we could build artificial general intelligence or some kind of digital deity that rapidly accelerates the pace of scientific and technological progress so that all of these possibilities become realized even sooner, right? Longevity is another big topic among them. This idea that we could perhaps, with different interventions right now, we could reach what they call longevity escape velocity.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
and we've done a whole episode on that I'll link in the comments.
Exactly.
We've done... Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think, are familiar with, Peter Thiel's quest to, live forever, or, Brian Johnson, these guys doing really weird stuff, blood transfusions, they're vampires or something, or, Brian Johnson is, measuring his boners at night to see,
and encouraging that others do the same.
Yeah, this is just, it's all really strange, but... So we have kind of in-depth episodes on a lot of these topics that I'll link, but I think for today, this idea of a digital deity and how that's uniting a lot of these characters, I think is something that we want to explore. I'll just pause and say it was interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine before this recording, and he was like, "What are you going to record about today?" And I was like, "Oh, we're going to talk about this group of billionaires in Silicon Valley and how they're all kind of connected to each other through this weird cult-like ideological movement or paradigm." And he's like, "Is this an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory?" And I was like, No. This is real people doing a real thing. They're friends. It's these are real organizations. This has nothing to do with it sounds conspiratorial, but it's not conspiratorial, right? These guys, they have very sort of traceable relationships to each other, to these movements, and it sounds like sci-fi, but to these guys it's very real, so
yeah I mean, I think that's this is a good issue to pause on, because you're totally right. There's nothing conspiratorial theoretic about this. It's everything is out in the open.
Yeah.
The articles that I and Timnit Gebru and others, a growing number of people have written about this topic, I mean, are chock full with citations and quotes and block quotes and so on. I mean, Peter Thiel has given lectures you could find online about these issues. People like Nick Bostrom has published papers and books, and so it's really, and there are also websites out there like openbook.fyi, where you can search information about funding, like the funding channels from super wealthy individuals who are in this TESCREAL ecosystem to the proliferation of organizations, right? Future of Life Institute, the Survival and Flourishing Fund. There's one called, I'm forgetting the exact name, but it's something like, Lightcone Institute or something.
Yeah, that's the one in Berkeley, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of them are based in or around Berkeley. And so, all of this is out in the open, and there is just so much evidence that, I mean, there's really two different ways of thinking about the TESCREAL thesis, right? One, I call this the weak thesis. This is just the claim that you cannot give a complete explanation of the origins of the ongoing race to build AGI without reference to the 7 ideologies that are encapsulated in the TESCREAL acronym. Right? You can't talk about how the AGI race started without mentioning transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, cosmism, rationalism, effective altruism, and long-termism, right? It's quite a mouthful. But I mean, those are, and so I think the weak thesis is just incontrovertibly true. Even some like kind of obscure ideology like cosmism. And cosmism is what motivated this guy named Ben Goertzel to pursue the creation of artificial general intelligence in the first place. Well, Ben Goertzel was the guy who popularized the term AGI, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be talking about AGI if not for him. And he got the term from another guy named Shane Legg. And Shane Legg was very much involved in the transhumanist movement from early on, and the singularitarian movement as well. He even won an award after he published his dissertation on artificial superintelligence. He got this $10,000 award from the Canadian Singularity Institute for Artificial Intelligence. I can't remember the exact title, but so he's part of the singularitarian movement. This guy Shane Legg, he's a co-founder of DeepMind. DeepMind was the first major AI company to have the explicit goal of creating this godlike AI.
Yeah.
Right. So all of this is out in the open, and if you read, for example, the article you were referencing at the very beginning, which I just submitted the final version to the Oxford Research Encyclopedia of Science, Technology, and Society.
Oh, cool.
And it's simply and rather boringly called TESCREAL, but it's 16,000 words. It's really detailed. It goes into a bunch of details that Timnit Gebru and I didn't go into in our TESCREAL paper from 2024. So yeah, if anybody's skeptical, just go read the articles.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I did want to know what we're going to say about Lightcone. If you even remember at this point, let me know.
It was called Lightcone Infrastructure. I'm remembering.
Okay. Yeah.
And just that the Lightcone reference is to the long-termist idea, which kind of came out of the transhumanist movement, that we should not only radically re-engineer ourselves, but go out and colonize as much of the accessible universe as possible.
Greenland.
And in physics. Yeah. Let's start with Greenland.
Venezuela.
There's a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of interest among the Silicon Valley billionaires in Greenland because of its resources. Gil Duran has been covering this in very insightful ways. But anyways, so like in cosmology, that region of the universe that is theoretically accessible to us, right? If we were, for example, traveling at the speed of light, is called the future light cone. So that's what Lightcone Infrastructure is referencing, is that long-termist idea that we need to become post-humans and then plunder the cosmos.
It's really just so cringe. I just almost can't handle how cringe it is. So, okay.
I'm in the midst of writing a book about this,
Yeah.
and it's so painful. This book needs to be written.
Yeah.
This will be the culmination of basically 5 years of podcasts and interviews and articles, etc. So it needs to, all these ideas need to just find a home in a single place within a coherent and compelling narrative. But at the same time, I have such extreme topic fatigue.
Yeah. I know
I'm
what you
so
mean.
tired of talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know. I think we all can relate to some extent with Trump in office, right?
Yeah.
It's just too much looking at the news every day. But that's kind of how I feel about the whole TESCREAL bundle. I mean, I think it's only becoming increasingly relevant and important for people to understand what this ideology is. It doesn't seem to be going away. It's still informing the decisions that very powerful people in that very powerful corner of society called Silicon Valley are making.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's it's so ridiculous and bizarre and comical. If it would all be very, very comical if the TESCREAL movement didn't have so much power and influence.
I know. And that's the thing is like these like the world is going to include like some sci-fi dorks for sure, but
Yeah.
it's not like it's a bit extra that these people have enough money to try to actually accomplish like their dumbass sci-fi vision.
Yeah.
This is maybe the first time that we have really seen that on a mass scale. So as far as the digital deity goes, would you say that there are any shared characteristics with like how different people and companies are imagining that this godlike AI would work? Like, what would this? Why do they think it's godlike? In what way is it operating like a deity?
Yeah. Well, they think that intelligence is everything, right? And so, if this AI system is super intelligent, it's going to be superior, more powerful, et cetera, than us, right? It will, the difference between us and it may very well be greater than the difference between us and the lowly cockroach.
Yeah.
Right? So it will just tower above us to that extent.
Wow.
And in that sense, it will be like functionally a god, right? It'll be able to discover new physics, right? Maybe physics that we can't possibly understand simply because of the limitations of the architecture of our minds, right? We just don't have the concept generating mechanisms necessary to understand aspects of physics. So consequently, if it does discover new fields of physics, it could be able to manipulate and rearrange the world in ways that are utterly mystifying to us, right? In the same way that a dog is just utterly mystified that their owner's voice could emerge out of a phone.
Yeah.
Like where the owner's like 1,000 miles away. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And it could never make sense to our canine companions, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we're in the same situation with respect to superintelligence. And in that sense, it's godlike.
Yeah.
Right?
Just so much smarter than us.
Yeah, and I think a problem here is this idea of smart and intelligence, right? Intelligence just doesn't have a agreed upon definition, right? Shane Lake himself published an article where he looked at all of the different definitions that scientists have given and advocated for, and there are so many of them. For some people, it's like, well, it's the ability to acquire appropriate means to achieve some end. For others, no, it's the capacity to learn. For others, it's, there are a million different definitions. So there seems to be a fundamental problem when people are talking about AGI, right? Which is the stepping stone to ASI, or artificial superintelligence.
Okay.
Because we just don't know what intelligence is. What exactly does it mean for something to be super intelligent? Right?
Yeah,
it's going to have an IQ of like 1,000. I don't know what that means.
I think like part of your thesis that's important and I think is kind of easily provable as well based on, what these companies are doing and, what their founders say is that like this isn't all about making money. Of course, making money is part of it, but, it's not for example, it's not about like making the best AI customer service chatbot that is going to cause, every small to mid-sized business to like subscribe to their services and, sell a lot of stock in the company. I mean, it's not, it's not just about like, being the next Salesforce that, functions way better. Like we're out of the realm of just software development into like these people have ideological goals. Like they want like a different future. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I've argued that, well, the first part of this is not controversial. If you want to understand the behavior of virtually every company in our capitalist milieu, all you have to do is point to the profit motive.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Why are the oil companies destroying the world? It's profit. Why are the healthcare companies so terrible in the US? Profit, and so on and so on. When you get to the AI companies, I don't think profit is sufficient.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the further back you go towards the origins of the AGI race, the less significant profit becomes as an explanation for why they got off the ground.
Yeah.
Right? And not just why they got off the ground, but how they got funded, right? Because they were initially funded by people in the TESCREAL movement. So I think profit has crept in over time as companies with sort of pure ideological goals like Anthropic and OpenAI are getting backed by Amazon and Microsoft with billions and billions of dollars. There was one estimate that so far 1.5 trillion has been spent on the AGI race, right? It's just, imagine what you could do with that money if it wasn't wasted on, on the AGI race. You could, mitigate climate change, get healthcare for poor people and so on.
And there's no there's no guarantee or even maybe likelihood that this is going to lead to anything that these people would call AGI. This very well may end up being a way to make a customer service chatbot that works a little bit better,
or just to produce machines that ultimately undermine and destroy democratic societies.
Yeah,
right?
Destroy democratic societies, but also just like automate a lot of jobs, which it's like there's always technology that automates jobs, I mean, like that's part of being that's just part of capitalism, and has been. I mean, certainly in the Industrial Revolution, there are plenty of people saying that we shouldn't make like this or that technology.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying is there's something extra here, right? Like it isn't just about like automating away the jobs. It isn't just about selling a bunch of stock. There is something extra, but those original motivations are also part of it, I guess. So yeah.
Yes, I think one thing a qualification I would add here is I don't think and have never thought that the majority of people who are working at these companies are TESCREALists.
Yeah.
The individuals who buy into these ideologies. Yeah. I know for a fact that there are plenty of people at DeepMind, for example, who took the job because it pays super well. They get a ton of money, and they work on problems that, when you get into the nitty-gritty details, are just really intellectually interesting.
Yeah.
Those are fun to work on. So they get paid really well to do. But it's really the core members of these companies.
And also, I think an irony that sorry to interrupt you, but just an irony of like why a lot of software engineers are working on AI at this point is because AI has taken a lot of other software engineering jobs. Like, of all the industries that are, most affected, tech and software engineering is one of the most affected because, like it's difficult to automate, like you can't make an AI to replace like the trash collection and as much as they try to make AI to replace like therapists or whatever, like there actually is no substitute for like sitting across from like another human being. I mean, even like, let's say like a administrative assistant or whatever, maybe that person's job can get easier with AI, but there's some value in having like a person that's actually there to do it and, you know, to collect deliveries and all this stuff. But like with coding, like that's solving math problems. And it's not like there's no software engineers needed, like even now, but, you know, like kind of junior level or mid-level software engineers, like, you know, those, it's just some of the easiest jobs to get rid of, because it is all about like calculations and writing code, like some of the things that AI is like really good at, because it doesn't require like actual, I'm sure that people would argue with me on this, but it doesn't require like empathy or like making connections between things that are not connected in a super obvious way. Like I'm imagining software engineers will be like, of course I need empathy for my users. That's how we, you know, understand what to build and what people's so yeah. But, you know, I mean, like in terms of making money, if your chosen field is tech, like being really good at, you know, machine learning, engineering, you know, or like specializing in AI, like that's one of the ways to have a job still in an industry that is becoming harder to be employed in. You know, like we're definitely not in like the 2013, 2014 like boom time when, you know, just venture capital was just like backing like an F ton of startups, you know, that are not AI related.
There is definitely an irony that many of the software engineers and computer scientists who are working at these companies are essentially trying to make their jobs obsolete.
Yeah.
Right. But getting back to something you said before, and related to what I just said, obsoleting jobs like cognitively demanding jobs like computer science, that's only the near-term goal or consequence, right? The longer term goal is this godlike AI, AGI or ASI, artificial superintelligence.
It's so stupid. I don't know.
You know, intelligence is everything. So we get superintelligence, and you know, then you have a super engineer, and since all problems in the world are engineering problems, you can solve all problems, right? This is why Nick Bostrom literally talks about the world becoming solved.
Yeah.
Right. He uses the term solved world. He also uses the term paradise engineering.
Yeah.
Right. Again, as if utopia is something you could just engineer.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that this is a huge gamble, because I think it's become clear over the past 2 years, definitely the past year, that large language models are probably, I mean, in my view, they most definitely are not going to lead us to AGI. They're an off-ramp. Maybe there's some system, hypothetical system we could build in the future, maybe like in a decade or more, that utilizes large language models, right? The large language models are the systems that ChatGPT and so on are built on, that utilizes that as a component of a larger system. But large language models themselves, they don't have a world model. They hallucinate constantly, and that seems to be an inherent feature or byproduct of their particular architecture, right? And by world model, I just mean like an understanding of the world as consisting of a multiplicity of entities that endure through time and have certain causal relations to each other. Something like that. We all have a world model, right? But LLMs don't. And so if you want superintelligence, presumably it's going to need a world model. It's hard to imagine how a system could be superintelligent and, you know, discover new physics and so on if it has no world model, right? I mean, the systems we have right now, the technical term would be like autoregressive next token prediction engines or predictors, right? Because basically what they're doing is just predicting the next, to speak a little roughly, is predicting the next word in a sentence based on the words that came before, mirroring all of the sentences that are in their training data. Right? That's all they're doing. That's, on the internet. Yeah, exactly. You know, all the books that Anthropic illegally downloaded from libgen.org, you know, and had to pay out recently 1.5 billion in damages. So anyways, there's this huge gamble, and it seems like it's not going to pay off. And I think that's one reason many people are believe that we're in the midst of an AI bubble, right? And it's going to pop at some point, because all of these grandiose proclamations about what AI is going to be capable of, how it's going to be able to automate all jobs, and that's just the start. Beyond that, it's going to be discovering new science. It's just going to radically transform our society, as if we were suddenly visited by some superior alien species, right? Like,
Well,
it's
I don't know. I
literally
mean,
that's an analogy.
I think Sam Altman might be an alien. I wouldn't classify him as superior in any way, but I'm not completely convinced that he is from the Earth.
Yeah. Do you remember when Mark Zuckerberg I think he wanted to say something like "when I was a kid," but he said in front of an audience, when I was human."
Oh God, yeah, I
And then
remember
he
that.
stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you know that we don't know? Okay, so to get into these 4 AI companies, the 4 major players, like, who are they?
So there are really a huge number of AI companies right now who are motivated by the explicit goal of creating AGI, and beyond that, superintelligence, right? But there are really there are 4 big ones. There are kind of 5 big ones. Meta would be the 5th one, but
Okay.
Meta, made this big announcement about their new superintelligence research lab, which they were offering like $100 million signing bonuses to people from other companies to quit their job and join Meta's team. And as far as I can tell, their superintelligence lab has just like gone nowhere. It's like completely collapsed.
Yeah.
So that's partly why in some recent articles I kind of ignore them. Also, one of their lead AI scientists, the Turing Award winner, Jan LeCun, left Meta, right, to start his own company. So they really seem kind of dead in the water.
Yeah.
For lack of a better phrase. So the 4 big ones, I think, are DeepMind, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Elon Musk's xAI.
Yeah, wow.
So DeepMind, yeah.
I'm just saying
DeepMind
wow
was
because
the-
you never think of X as like an AI company, you know? Like, it has Grok,
Well-
but yeah.
Well, xAI.
Yeah. Oh, so it's a separate
which
company.
is different. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So xAI is an AI company that has produced Grok. Grok has been integrated on Twitter and now in the Pentagon. After it made international headlines for undressing underage girls when users asked it to do so on X. But yeah, so X and xAI are different companies.
Oh gosh, I should probably know that, but also I just try to shield myself a little bit, when we're not podcasting. Okay, so
No, but this is good. There's a kind of like division of cognitive labor, but also a division of emotional labor. So like, let me go off and spend years reading about this stuff and just like feeling depressed and angry and frustrated. And then I'll just give you and others little snippets of it that I think are important.
I mean, like, you get to live in Europe, so I feel like, you can research worse stuff because you live somewhere with nice food and nice wine and no Trump.
My mental health over the past month has improved appreciably.
I do notice
Like,
you're in like sunny spirits. Yeah.
Really, I'm glad to know it comes across. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, we've also been busy, but I haven't noticed you talking about how for sure all of humanity is going to die in like a few weeks now. Yeah.
Well, I still think that.
But it's
Maybe
not
I'm just-
it's not at the forefront constantly,
Yeah.
Okay, so we have xAI, DeepMind, Anthropic, and OpenAI. And just in like a
Correct.
very literal, just like the first just the facts kind of explanation, how are these companies each connected to test realism?
Okay, I will try to be very succinct.
Well,
DeepMind
then we'll go into the longer
was the first
one.
one to be founded.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give a brief overview. DeepMind was the first to be founded 2010. It was co-started by Shane Lake, who I mentioned earlier, the guy who coined the term AGI. Actually, there was a different guy, Mark. I actually don't know how to pronounce his last name, like Gubrud, or something like that. If Mark's listening, I'm really sorry. We're friends on social media. He actually introduced the term back in 1997. It didn't catch on though. And then Shane Lake independently came up with it again around like 2007, and then that's why we have that term in our shared lexicon, right? So Shane Lake was one of the co-founders, Demis Hassabis and Mustafa Solomon. Mustafa Solomon, I won't go into much detail about him, but basically what happened, maybe I am giving the long version now. I hope that's okay.
That's okay.
Basically what happened is Demis and Shane Lake both gave talks at the 2010 Singularity Summit.
Yeah.
The Singularity Summit is an event that was held annually for a number of years. It's not happening anymore. And it was co-founded by Ray Kurzweil, the transhumanist, basically extropian. I mean, Kurzweil has direct links to the extropian movement, singularitarian, who inspired a lot of these people with his singularitarian writing. And the second person to co-found was Eliezer Yudkowsky, another transhumanist, extropian, singularitarian, etc., and Peter Thiel.
Okay.
Right? So Shane Lake and Demis Hassabis gave a talk, both discussing like superintelligence and like what they wanted to build someday, and then they followed Peter Thiel back to his mansion after the Singularity Summit, and Demis cornered Thiel, started talking about chess because he knew that Thiel likes chess, and eventually asked Thiel for money to start DeepMind. Thiel then said yes. And that is how DeepMind started. It's because Ray Kurzweil, Yudkowsky, and Thiel started this event, Singularity Summit. They gave a talk, and then they got direct access to this wealthy donor.
And then now DeepMind is owned by Google? They were acquired at some point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think they were acquired in 2014. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's right.
But it started as just like a little startup with just a startup.
Yes, yeah. And now it's technically Google DeepMind.
Okay.
Is the name. But yeah, the core team of individuals, though, were very much embedded in the TESCREAL movement. Like I said before, Shane Lake won this award from the Canadian Singularity Institute. Shane Lake also was like exchanging messages with Eliezer Yudkowsky on Less Wrong and some other email listservs that Yudkowsky had started way back before DeepMind came into existence. So there are deep roots in the TESCREAL movement. TESCREAL ideas are what motivated the founding of DeepMind, and it's the way that DeepMind got money to start in the first place, right? And so then the second company to get founded was OpenAI by Sam Altman and Elon Musk, among others. And
it
Elon
started
Musk
as a nonprofit, right? Wasn't it founded actually as a nonprofit, or no? Am I getting that wrong? Okay.
Yes.
So not even a company. Yeah.
Not a company. This ties into what we were saying before, that profit was originally not the main driver. I mean, Demis Hassabis and Shane Lake, their goal was to build a super intelligence to usher in a utopia, right? That was the ultimate goal. Who really gives a shit about profit when you can see utopia hovering there on the horizon of technological possibility, right? If only you develop the AIs that can get you there, right? So similarly with OpenAI, it started off as a nonprofit. Elon Musk is a transhumanist who talks about the singularity all the time. He's called long-termism, quote, a close match for my philosophy. He's retweeted articles that Bostrom, who is probably the most influential figure within the TESCREAL movement, at least until recently, retweeted an article that Bostrom had written. Even Elon Musk's obsession with the simulation hypothesis, the idea that we might be living in a computer simulation, which he thinks is almost certainly the case. That idea was popularized by Bostrom.
Yeah.
Back in, I think it was 2003, Bostrom published an article on it. So Elon Musk, like, as someone who was in the TESCREAL movement, I knew colleagues who were friends with Musk, right? They go to conferences, they'd hang out with Musk, they take pictures and so on. It's just by chance I was never at one of those conferences where I met, or I would have had the opportunity to meet Musk. So anyways, it's, Sam Altman and Elon Musk founded OpenAI because they were worried that Demis didn't actually have the right moral approach to building godlike AI. That actually what he was going to do is use the superintelligence to gain power. Literally, Musk talked about an AI dictatorship run by Demis Hassabis, which is just, it's really, it's really ridiculous. So that's why they thought, okay, we need to start OpenAI because we will build AGI in a responsible manner, right? More responsible than DeepMind. And as for Sam Altman, the New York Times described him in a profile as someone who is, quote, a product of the effective altruist and rationalist communities. He's literally said that Eliezer Yudkowsky is the reason that he and many other people in the field of AI got into that field in the first place.
Yeah.
And he joked that Yudkowsky might actually deserve the Nobel Peace Prize for having inspired so many people to try to build this AI god. There's tons of other things to say about Altman's extensive connections to the TESCREAL movement, but that gives you a sense of his background, that he wasn't just some like random guy existing in a vacuum. No, the cultural context from which he emerged was, these TESCREAL ideas, right? And so then OpenAI got a lot of funding from Microsoft, I think $10 billion initially. And there were various people who were working for OpenAI who then decided that Sam Altman is actually a danger. He's not the right guy to usher in the post-human or, post-singularity world. He's not responsible enough. He's not thoughtful enough. He doesn't have the right morals. These individuals were all EA long-termists, effective altruist long-termists, right? Who embraced, the transhumanist ideologies, as well as various other letters in that alphabet soup of the TESCREAL acronym. So they went on to found their own company in 2021 called Anthropic, right? So Dario Amodei is one of the co-founders, and he is very much a part of the TESCREAL movement. There's another different New York Times article that pointed out that of all of it started off by saying all of the leading AI labs in Silicon Valley have been significantly influenced by EA long-termism, right? Which they basically mean TESCREALism, because long-termism itself subsumes transhumanism, right? Long-termism is transhumanism plus. Right.
Yeah.
So if you say someone's a long-termist, you're saying they're a transhumanist, plus they have these like cosmic visions of spreading beyond Earth and flooding our future light cone, to use that term again, with digital people and so on. So Dario Amodei was absolutely a diehard long-termist. This New York Times article said all the labs have been touched by EA long-termism, but no lab embodies that ethos more than Anthropic. Right. So the core team at Anthropic is just hardcore TESCREAL. And so it's kind of funny looking at the history here, because you have DeepMind, and a bunch of people in the TESCREAL movement were really excited when it was first founded. They thought, oh, Demis and Shane Legg, they understand the risks, and they also understand the utopian upside of superintelligence. So we're really psyched that they founded this company explicitly trying to build godlike AI. And then you had some other people like Musk and Altman say, no, actually, Demis Hassabis, he's not the right guy. So they founded their company to do things better in a more responsible way. And then you had Anthropic founded because those founders said, oh gosh, no, Sam Altman, he doesn't have the right moral foundation to be the guy who ushers in this post-human world. And so you have,
and so then Elon is, I mean, as far as xAI goes, we all know Elon and just talks about him, but are there any other major figures in that company as well? Or is it basically
good question.
Elon's thing?
It is kind of Elon's thing, at least when it comes to like the higher ups, the leadership.
Yeah.
But it's worth noting. So on the one hand, it's worth reiterating that Elon Musk himself has extensive connections with the test girl movement. Also, he hired as one of the advisors a guy named Dan Hendricks. And Dan Hendricks is very much an EA long-termist transhumanist, right? Dan Hendricks literally said in an article that he posted on the Effective Altruism Forum, that the reason he went into the field of AI was because he had like a meeting with career counselors within the EA community. And they suggested that the best way to do the most good, to have the greatest positive impact, is to go into the field of AI and develop safe AI that can usher in utopia rather than destroying humanity.
Yeah,
right?
not emergency medicine,
exactly. That is a complete waste.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, once you have super intelligence, you can cure every disease. So there's no point in like training to be a doctor. Go into AI, build the super doctor, and so it just makes no sense from their perspective.
One simple trick.
Like you said before. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge gamble because it doesn't seem like the systems that they're developing are actually going to get us to AGI. To the contrary, like I was hinting at earlier, I mean, they are unraveling the fabric of society in very profound and rapid ways. There's a really good article published recently. I think it was titled "How AI Destroys Society" or something like that. The authors present a very thorough and detailed case for the ways in which the AI systems we have right now are deeply and alarmingly undermining civic institutions, by which they mean things like universities, the rule of law, and the free press.
Yeah.
Right? All of those are under direct, immediate threat by the AI systems we have right now. So this actually gets at an idea that I had proposed several years ago, which is that putting aside the question of whether or not large language models can get us to AGI, it could be the case that we're still not able to actually build AGI. Why is that? Because perhaps the stepping stone systems we need to invent in order to reach AGI, those stepping stone systems will have such catastrophic consequences for society that society will not last long enough for us to actually develop AGI.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. That seems like kind of more plausible after reading that article on how AI destroys society.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting to contrast. Like, I went to Cuba in the fall, and it's so interesting to think about like what they spend their money and their technological resources, their greatest minds on. Obviously, there's a giant economic disparity between like Cuba and the United States. Yeah. Mostly because, I mean, for many reasons, but largely because the United States has, had this decades-long blockade on Cuba. But, okay, putting all that aside and just thinking like, okay, what are the two choices that these countries make? Cuba has their greatest minds working on an Alzheimer's drug, to a lung cancer vaccine, right? And like, we're just out here in the U.S. just in some, soup of like a sci-fi weirdo shit and
utopianism.
Then, like the utopianism and then the justification, like to somebody who's maybe not so not so deep into it is like, oh well, if we don't get it, then China is going to, and terrorists are going to get it or whatever. It's basically like. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like the nuclear arms race a little bit in some ways,
I think that is what people in Silicon Valley want it to look like. There's no indication, as far as I can tell, that China is interested in an AGI race with the US, right? But there are so many people in the US. Tech billionaires have been promoting this idea, arguing that this is in fact the case. We're in this race, and therefore we can't stop pushing the pedal to the metal, because if we do that, then China's going to rush ahead and beat us to the AGI finish line. And there's this widespread view that whoever gets the finish line, the AGI finish line first, wins the world, right? Like once you have once you have AGI, you have superintelligence, right? Because the AGI is just going to design the next generation of even more capable machines, and so on until you have just a radically super intelligent computer or algorithm. And once you have that, then you can just task the algorithm with like solving all of the problems of geopolitics such that you win, right? And so the stakes are huge. China is racing to get there before us. If China wins, then authoritarian communism wins, and we can't let that happen. So we pour more and more, billions and trillions of dollars into the AI race to defeat our geopolitical foe. But again, there's like no evidence that there actually is a race with China. I mean, it has like explicitly,
like the AI that China's building, they're doing it. I mean, because they have, what was that tool that, it was like basically China's ChatGPT, right? DeepSeek, right? But like they have more normal motivations for it, or they're just, it's an end unto itself to have this super useful chatbot that's better than ChatGPT to do it with like less energy needed. Like, why for the AI they have developed? Why do you think that? Why are they in it?
I do not have expertise on China's relation to AI. My understanding is that they are not, those researchers are not imbued with the same kind of techno-utopian visions or fantasies of the future that are driving people in the US. And
it's about like, let's make something useful for now.
Or maybe not even useful, because large language models aren't that useful, I think. But like entertaining, or just to show that we could sort of keep up with the US. But I don't think there's this idea that like, oh, we need to build AI as fast as possible so that we could rule the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we can get into this on another episode, but like I think that there is like in a let's say in a communist society. Like you could imagine a situation where AI was used to reduce the amount of time that people had to work to increase leisure time for everybody. I mean, I think David Graeber was a proponent of getting rid of like these like bullshit jobs, and maybe between that and technological progress, AI automation, that like maybe we end up in a situation where like to keep society going, everybody only has to work 10 hours a week, and then has extra time with their family for their artistic passions, their hobbies, volunteering, whatever they personally find meaningful, rewarding, fulfilling, So it's like, I think theoretically you could make the case that like there could be like a communist utopian version of AI, but I don't. It certainly doesn't seem like that's where we're headed on this trajectory.
Grimes has made that exact argument on social media. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, many people have. Yes,
you're totally
but
right. Grimes just comes to mind for me. I mean, I think this gets at an important point. I think you're bringing up like something that is worth emphasizing, which is that being so the term anti-AI is very vague, because the term AI is kind of intentionally vague, right? I mean, it was literally introduced way back in, I think it was coined maybe in 1955 for the 1956 conference at Dartmouth University that founded the field of AI. It was coined as a marketing term, right? And today it means like there's this huge range of different technologies that it can refer to, like the chatbots, the translation algorithms. So there's a book that was recently published by Alex Hanna and Emily Bender. Emily Bender's the one who coined the term stochastic parrots. And their book is called The AI Con. And it's really good. And there's a nice discussion of how AI is a marketing term that just covers like a ton of different technologies. So all of this is to say that you can be anti the kinds of quote unquote AI that are, as it were, destroying society, while also being pro-technology, right? I don't consider myself to be anti-technology. I feel pushed more and more in that direction.
Yeah, but you're not full on anarcho-primitivist.
No, I've not returned to this view that I once was very sympathetic with. But so I think like if we develop AI so-called narrow AI systems that are built to solve particular problems, maybe like devise new drugs or treatments for Alzheimer's, to cure cancer and so on. I think that is awesome, and I'm all for that. Right? I'm just anti-AI in the sense that I think the chatbots that and all these generative AI systems that companies like OpenAI have unleashed on society without anyone's consent, I think they're really dangerous. They're just flooding the internet with garbage, slop, clutter, and nonsense. And so I think it's making our world much, much, much worse. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So just to underline, like I don't oppose like the development of AI or even advanced AI, and I also agree that like in a better society, like a democratic communist society, perhaps there are ways of developing and implementing these technologies that really do make life for not just the elites in Silicon Valley, but everyone. Make life for everyone much better. They do replace all the drudgery and the menial work that nobody really wants to do, so that people can instead like pursue creative activities and so on. But I just feel like we're so far from realizing anything like that future. It's just I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I watched the movie Doctor Strangelove again the other day, which is something that I had seen before, and it's a great movie for anybody who hasn't seen it. But it's about the it's about the nuclear arms race. It's a satire. Probably most people here have seen it at some point, but I think it is interesting to watch that movie through the lens of like what's happening now, where like there's just a lot of dangerous technology being built, with these kind of rationalizations that just don't hold up if you think about it at all for more than a second. In Doctor Strangelove, it's like, oh, we're going to build a machine that is going to destroy is capable of destroying the entire world in order to save humanity from destruction. And I kind of feel like we are in the same sort of situation now.
I don't disagree. I do think that there are parallels.
I think that's probably good for this week. I just want to take a second to thank our Patreon supporters. We could not do this show without you. I especially want to thank our newest supporters, who are Paco, Tom, Travis, Marcus, Adele. Thank you so much for joining. We put out some extra episodes on Patreon. So yes, thank you so much. Hopefully we didn't bum you out too much. Thanks again.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.